Hello and welcome to the Can I Retire Now podcast with your hosts, Nick Russell and Becky Wagoner. I'm your podcast producer, RJ Malik. Nick and Becky, we're going to be talking about the mortgage question. So I'm going to just direct it at you, Nick. Why don't you take it away?
Obviously, there's a lot of mortgage questions, but the one that I really get asked a lot when it comes to retirement specifically is, "Hey, I'm nearing retirement. Should I pay off my mortgage?" Or
Hmm.
frankly, a lot of people come in and just go, "I'm paying off my mortgage before retirement because I don't want to have a mortgage in retirement."
They just come in and tell you that?
You'd be surprised how many people come into my office and go, "Hey, I'm doing this. Can you also look at my portfolio?" Because they're
Wait.
so used to, yeah, they're so used to the old school stockbroker mentality of like, this guy looks at my investments and he doesn't have to worry about Social Security, mortgages, all that. They don't realize that when you look at a whole comprehensive plan for somebody, something like mortgages really play a big effect. Obviously, it's an expense every month. It's usually people's largest expense. And in retirement, that makes them worried. Like, well, I'm on a fixed income. How am I going to continue to pay this? So I wanted to kind of talk a little bit about that today, just because it's a very common kind of series of questions surrounding this that I do get on a regular basis.
Yeah, it's probably a mortgage is probably I'm totally guessing here. Uh the longest bill people have, right? Like they're
Oh
typically
yeah,
30 years. Like you're paying off a car quicker than that. You're paying off everything else quicker than that.
it's the largest. It's the longest. Yeah.
Okay, so they come in and either tell you or ask you, hopefully, I'm just surprised if you have a financial advisor, why wouldn't this be a question instead of a statement? But
I'm thinking of like people that aren't clients yet, people that are coming in meeting with me for the first time and
okay.
go, "This is what I have planned," and I'm like, "Okay, why don't we just figure out what makes the most sense, and then we can go."
So if someone comes in, yeah, and is like, I'm retiring. I have 10 years left on my mortgage. I'm just going to pay it all off now so I have lower monthly expenses. Like, should I do that? What what would make that a good idea? And then we'll talk about what would make that a bad idea. So what would make it a good idea to pay off your mortgage?
Inherently, what would make it a good idea is, I guess, if there is high interest on it,
Okay.
which because of our current interest rate environment, up until 2 years ago, we've had really low, historically low interest rates. So
Uh-huh.
anybody who got a mortgage more than 3 years or more ago, or refinanced back then, probably has a very low interest rate. So they're not in that camp. But let's say someone still had a 7 or 8 or 9% mortgage rate, like good old back in the day. Yeah, that's a big expense. Um, if cash flow wise, it doesn't make sense. I guess probably the best way to answer this question is to kind of think about what should you consider, and therefore it kind of answers what makes it a good or a bad decision.
All right. So it's a really complicated question. So what are the things we consider when we think about this question?
Like what I'm thinking of as a financial advisor when someone asks me that question is A, how much is left on the mortgage? B, what's the interest rate? And then C is, what does the money that we would use to pay off the mortgage? Let's say you have $100,000 left on your mortgage. What would that $100,000 be doing if we didn't pay off the mortgage? And so the thought process there is kind of how much income can that produce? Is it equal to or more than the cost of the mortgage?
An opportunity cost, if you will.
Yeah, so it's more of a I think people's instinct is it's a cash flow issue. Like, hey, I have a $2,000 a month mortgage. I don't want to have that in retirement because that's a $2,000 expense. And they're right, but they're kind of thinking of it backwards. Instead of having that expense that now you have to use all of this money to get rid of, can that other money produce $2,000 a month? If it can, then I'd rather have the money, use it to pay off the mortgage, and then eventually when the mortgage isn't there, still have that money producing that income, still have that cash
Okay.
flow. So it's
Okay.
conceptually people are thinking about it right, but they're not considering the downside of, let's say you have Social Security, maybe you're lucky enough to have a pension, and you got a little lump sum of money. If you turn around and say, let me use that money and pay off my mortgage, well, now you'll never have that money to grow or produce an income for you. Yeah, your expenses are less, but now you own a house outright and you have fixed income and you're kind of just stuck. There's no flexibility there.
Okay. So it may be better to invest the money and make it work for you in a different way than reducing your monthly costs.
And maybe, especially with, if people have 3-4% mortgages, like in today's environment, you can get a CD paying 5. So you're literally making more money than it's costing you to have the mortgage. Now, if on the other hand, if you don't pay off the mortgage and that money sits in a checking account earning nothing, that probably isn't going to be a good decision. Like you need that money to make enough to basically pay that mortgage. So it's one of those like really personal questions. It really takes the individual situation. This is why you work with an advisor, right? To say, hey, what's my other sources of income? How much is this costing me? And can I use my money in like what's the best way to use my money, use my assets?
All right. So it's not an automatic yes and it's not an automatic no. There's some real intricacies there. Okay. So another thing that people often do when they retire is they decide to downsize or relocate and downsize. Maybe they're relocating to Florida. We know there's always retirees here in Florida moving here.
They're all coming here. Yeah.
Maybe not downsizing, but they're relocating or whatever. So is that always a good idea right when you retire? I mean, it seems kind of old school, if you will. Like everyone's like, I put in my 45 years, I'm going to move to Florida kind of situation. Are people still doing that? And is it a good idea?
So yes, they're still doing it. And now we've actually have a whole group of people they call halfbacks.
What?
So they're people like RJ and me, my mom, all these Northeasterners that, usually retire and move down to Florida. Well, now a lot of us are moving down pre-retirement and retired and early in retirement. But now we're moving halfway back and they're settling in Tennessee, Kentucky, and North and South Carolina because they come down here. It's 1,000,000 degrees. And they go, I don't want snow, but I don't want to sweat for the rest of my life.
Okay.
And they go, I miss the 4 seasons, and they're making it halfway back.
All right, so they're moving not once, but twice. They're taking corrective action, if you will.
Yeah.
Okay, I thought you were going to say
yeah.
they were the ones that moved down here for half a year, which Floridians affectionately call snowbirds, right? They're escaping winter, but this is a different kind of half situation.
Whole different thing.
They're moving to hot weather and discovering we really mean it when we say it's hot and humid, and then they are saying, back it up a little bit.
They see how big the bugs are and go, no, I'm out. Yeah.
Okay.
But whether or not that's a good to downsize, it conceptually, absolutely, right? As Americans, your house gets bigger and bigger and bigger as your family gets bigger. And then when you retire, the kids are usually out of the house. It's just 1 or 2 of you. Do you need a 4,000 square foot house? And now, whether or not you have a mortgage, the property taxes, the insurance, the maintenance of that house. Yeah. Do you need that? This is now me being personal. No, you don't need that. We don't need that. Like we're never going to do that, right? Now, the idea of downsizing is now you have less space, so less taxes, less insurance. If you had a mortgage, maybe you sell your house in New Jersey for $1 million, pay off your $300,000 mortgage, and take your $700,000. And heck, down in certain areas of Florida, you can buy a mansion, right?
So now you have no mortgage, less to maintain, less taxes, hot weather. Okay.
And it kind of works. Now, I have also seen, though, people selling their homes and buying homes as they relocate, but with mortgages because they don't have equity in their home. So, for example, they bought a home.
Age. Okay.
Yeah, they bought a home 3 years ago. And then they're moving. And now they have some equity, but they don't really have like equity to, full out buy a house for cash. And now they're moving. And now interest rates are higher. So now the mortgage isn't at 3%, it's at 7%. And now they're really running into this issue of, I always thought I'd move and relocate, and they're getting a smaller house at a higher monthly expense.
It doesn't seem like the goal, but I understand things happen.
Yeah. So this is where the whole idea of planning in advance does come into play, is that, look, we don't know what's going to happen with interest rates right now as we're sitting here today. The Fed's talking about lowering interest rates, and I think over the next year or so, that's likely to happen. That'll bring mortgage rates down. Great. Maybe they come down into like a little sweet spot. Um, but I don't know if this is an inherently American thing, or what, but it feels like people don't live in their house for 30 years, right? You get a 30-year mortgage. They're in and out of their house in 5 or 7 years.
It feels less common now.
Yeah, right? People relocate for work, which is a lot more common. Like your parents have owned their house 50 years.
Yeah, my parents have lived in their house over 50 years, and they now own my grandparents' house, which was given to them also 50 years. So I'm not a good example in my family. I don't know what that's like moving around a lot, but yeah, I think all our friends move around a lot. So I mean, you're just starting the clock every time you move, and people are continuing to do that up until retirement, is what you're saying.
Yes. So there's a few issues. You don't have equity in the home, so you're likely going to have a mortgage. People that cashed out refinance their homes, they take money out to do renovations to the home. Now they sell it, but now they've used the equity to do those renovations. So again, they're kind of short. They're not coming in with this lump sum that's going to buy this, retirement home for cash. Home prices have gone up a lot. More interest rates have gone up. It's a lot harder to do, and people tend to just, believe it or not, do what they want to do. And so if they had this thought process of, hey, I'm going to retire this year and I'm moving to North Carolina and I'm buying this house that I want. Oh, the house is 25% more expensive and the interest rate's 2% higher. I'm doing it and I'll figure it out. And
Okay.
yeah, and it is less about the price of the home or interest rates than it is really about cash flow, about what is the expense of maintaining that house. And if you can find the appropriate house, it honestly doesn't matter what the price is or what the interest rates are, as long as you can afford that monthly payment, right? And the likely increases over time with taxes and insurance. That's really where the focus should be. Most people are focused on the price or interest rates. Yeah, that factors into the net number, but pay attention to what the cost of having that home is and how that may affect you.
Okay. Because that inherently, to me, feels like a not the best, you know what I mean? Like now we're making an emotional decision, and money's not emotional, right? Like this is where I want to live, this is what I want to do. But um, it can work as long as you have the cash flow, is what you're saying. So you need to look at the whole picture, even though it doesn't instinctually feel traditional, I guess is the word to use. Like I retire, I downsize, I reduce my expenses and everything. But it can work for some people. Okay.
I mean, I think about like my mom, right? We grew up in by the time I was born, my parents had bought and sold a few homes. And
Mm-hmm.
so we had a pretty nice home I grew up in for the lack of income that we had. But they were able to, renovate homes and have a decent amount down. And I think it was a 5-bedroom house I grew up in, right? So like, it was in a nice middle class neighborhood. Like we definitely were the poor people in that neighborhood, but it was great. But now my mom moves, right? My parents get divorced. My mom moves, but also my dad retires and all that, and she's in a 2-bedroom place, 2-bedroom, 2-bath, but like
Across the
1,300
street.
square feet. No, well, I was thinking of the place in Jersey before.
Oh, oh.
So she went from a 2,600 square foot house to like
Mm-hmm.
1,300 square feet. Then she moves down here. It's 900 square feet.
Yes.
Conceptually, when you hear that, you're like, oof.
And it took her a solid year. I also lived in the same floor plan that she has now. And it took her a full year to get used to it. I remember she was not comfortable for a year. And now she loves it because she travels all the time. And her line is, I walk out the door, lock the lock, and I don't think about it anymore. It's done. Like someone else is mowing the grass, someone else is, doing all this. There's nothing to worry about. So,
And when her taxes go up year to year, they go up $50. They don't go up $500 or something that would potentially affect someone's cash flow. And, and I think that's something that, like you said, it took her a year to realize. But people are really struggling with the concept of having less. There's a few people we know. We happen to be one of them. Like, we will own the amount of home that makes sense for us. We don't want to, there's homes in our neighborhoods that are being built that are literally more than twice the square footage in our same neighborhood. And that's great if you have 4 kids or you need the room. But like for us, family of 3, like we don't need it, and
that's true.
So why incur those expenses? And then when you get into retirement, now you're talking about someone on a fixed income or a fixed amount of expenses, right? Or fixed, whether it's Social Security or a pension or money they're taking from their investments. You have to be way more attentive to what those expenses are.
Okay. Interesting. So if people are still moving and maybe downsizing or not in retirement, this is your fun fact / quiz of the day. Dun, dun, dun. Where do you think the most retirees are moving? Give me a state.
Okay. So I will tell you, I would have said Florida as a no-brainer answer.
Mm-hmm.
But I know a lot of people that are moving to that mid-Atlantic area. And a lot of people are moving to the Southwest.
Okay.
So can I get 2 guesses?
Yes.
Give me 2 guesses, babe. Give me a chance to look smart.
Fine.
Okay.
All right.
I'm going to go Tennessee, Arizona.
Tennessee's just wrong. Yeah.
Tennessee's just flat out wrong.
You're
Okay.
50% wrong, but that means you're 50% right. Well, kind of. Maybe you're 100% wrong. Anyway, okay. Arizona is seeing a lot of retirees move there. They are seeing the second highest influx of retirees. So the state with the most retirees is exactly as you would think. It's Florida. 77,000 positive, upswing in retirees moved here last year, according to a survey by Smart Asset. So specifically, they're moving to Clearwater, like the Tampa Clearwater area is seeing the most growth, which does make sense. And an average of over 28% of the state of Florida is over the age of 60.
That's even more than I thought. Because, all my friends up north make fun of me. So first of all, they're going to make fun of me when they hear this to know that I didn't pick Florida inherently. But they think our area, we live in Orlando, is just a bunch of old people. And, it's usually different areas of Florida outside of
They're all on
Orlando.
the beaches.
Yeah, they're on the beaches. And on the coast, they're in South Florida up north. But can I give you a little fun fact right back at you? So,
I was not ready for this, but I'm excited.
Did you know that Central Florida, this I-4 corridor, so it's everything from Daytona all the way down to Tampa and Clearwater, has more people moving to it, a net positive people coming here, than any other metro city area in the country. We have more people moving here, and then you're telling me more specifically retirees. Go find somewhere else to go, guys.
Given the
I
traffic.
like I was going to say, I want less traffic on the highway. Can go find somewhere else to go. Tennessee's nice. Arizona's nice. Apparently Tennessee's not nice enough. Yeah, be a halfback.
Yeah, be trendy. Go halfback. So what state has the highest number, percentage-wise, of people at retirement age over 60? Can you guess? So Florida has the most moving, but what, as a population, has the highest number of people over 60? Any guesses?
Okay, I'm going to throw a weird one out there.
Mm-hmm.
Alaska.
Okay, I see where you're going, and you're on the right track because it's a math problem, right? Like this is a total population divided by age of 60
place.
or whatever. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And I don't see a lot of people moving there, so maybe they just retire and stay.
Maybe they just
I'm
age
trying to
and get cold and just freeze in place. Yeah, it's
so they just turn into ice cubes and they just put them in, yeah, the sun.
Yeah. Well, on the right track, it's actually Maine. It's actually the state of Maine.
Really?
So, yeah. So 30% of their population is age 60 or higher. So, and I think that has to do, again, because of just the equation of it, that maybe the Maine doesn't have a high population. So, but
Wasn't your fun fact last time about Vermont? I got to do some research on these New England states. They're doing some stuff up there, man.
okay. So, we've talked about mortgages and everything like that, and it seems like there's a lot of moving pieces, and this is something that you should definitely talk with your financial advisor about before making any literal moves or financial moves regarding your housing situation, right? There's so many things to consider.
Yeah, and I would actually say that, and I say this from having clients and friends who are mortgage brokers, realtors, the title company, they own title companies and stuff. But I think even more so, you're likely to talk to a mortgage broker or a realtor when you're trying to make this kind of decision. And I got to tell you, it's less about the product, the mortgage, or the home than the actual cash flow element. And I think people will naturally go to the mortgage broker, go to the realtor. It's important to talk to them, but you got to come back to talk to your financial advisor and say, hey, this is what it looks like it's going to cost me. You know what? How about this for, we're going to do all kinds of, can I give some homework? Do you have homework?
This is the homework, Nick.
Okay.
Yeah.
I just thought of something.
Okay.
And hopefully this is okay for me to say. Go on Google and type mortgage calculator, right? If you're not you right now, but people listening.
Mm-hmm.
And on there's all these different sites that give you financial information. But I believe Google still just like puts one right there on the main screen. And
Mm-hmm.
you could type in a principal, a price of the home, how much your down payment is, interest rate. So when you get those numbers, like from your mortgage broker, and say, what would a new mortgage look like for me? Because maybe I don't have the equity to fully pay off this house
Mm-hmm.
when I move. Put that in there. They'll estimate taxes and insurance. If you go to the county property appraiser, you could see what homes are paying for property taxes. You can call an insurance agent and say, what would insurance cost me on a $400,000 home? But use that mortgage calculator just even for an estimate because I think people are going to be really surprised because you look at it from 3 years ago, 4 years ago, 5 years ago, when interest rates were lower and home prices were lower, it was reasonable to have a mortgage under $2,000 a month. Now, I don't know of a single new mortgage that's under $2,500 a month, like of
Yeah.
people buying homes because interest rates are higher, home prices are higher, let alone the taxes and the interest. So homework for the group, Google mortgage calculator. This doesn't have to be anything like super complex here. Just use the Google calculator and see what those kind of payments would be. It may influence what kind of home you're looking for, or even if you, decide to keep, say, a rental property of yours, or keep a
Mm-hmm.
second home that you use. Because maybe if you realize you're not using it now, maybe if you sell that, maybe now you have the money to pay off your mortgage. Maybe that's the solution.
All right. And the other homework is, as you retire, make sure to include your financial advisor in the conversations regarding buying, selling, or paying off mortgages. So, all right. Thanks for the info, Nick. I was surprised at the number, how you said that's really a frequent question. That must, if it's obviously it's on people's mind and a lot of moving parts.
And like we talked about, right? It's their biggest expense. So it's something to consider, like getting rid of expenses and producing income, right? That's what retirement's about. Can we
Mm-hmm.
produce more income than our lifestyle expenses? So talk to your financial advisor. If you still have a mortgage or you're even considering moving, by the way, people are also moving and paying more for the new homes than what their current homes are selling for. So they're like putting themselves in a position. Um, I don't want to like Marie Kondo everybody, but like think about what you actually need in a home.
Yeah, that's a whole different
As,
episode, Nick.
yeah, I was going to say, as you are today, think about what you need. Bigger isn't always better. Like put yourself in the right place. So that, because the last thing I want to do is like see someone like my mom who's retired, then move because now she has to hire movers and all those expenses and closing costs and all that because she didn't make a good choice, right, the first time.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I talk to your financial advisor. Paying off your mortgage is not a no-brainer, especially if it's a low interest rate. Talk to your financial advisor, mortgage broker, realtor.
There you go.
All right. Remind people where they can find you.
All right. They can find us on the easiest spots of the website, sunrisewealthadvisors.com. They can find us on social media. Obviously, if you're listening to this, you're on Apple Music or Spotify or Buzzsprout or YouTube watching us. They can find us on Twitter, LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook, you name it, you got it. You can't find me, but you can find that mortgage calculator right there on Google. So there you go. You can find that as well.
All right. And can you preview the next podcast?
Yeah. I think next we were kind of spitballing some issues that people have been, we usually use topics that people bring up to me in meetings. So here we are. I think we're going to try to talk about the election. I think we're going to try to do it. And
and how it affects retirement planning.
Retirement and the market, not how it helps you argue with your family at Thanksgiving. So we're going to try to be very impartial and unbiased and just share facts and not get emotional. And we're going to see how that goes. But I think we're going to have 1-2 election episodes kind of spread out between now and November. So, yeah, no promises that it'll end without me sleeping on the couch, but we're going to talk about it. We're going to try for the people.
That sounds good. Looking forward to your next podcast, and thank you for listening to today's Can I Retire Now podcast. Until next time, for Nick and Becky, I'm RJ Malik.